welcome you to the first video of my coping skills series. I'll be recording a number of videos that help you learn how to identify unhealthy coping skills that you might be using and learn how to replace those skills with healthier ones that can help you live a functional, healthy, happy, whole life. And again, that's what my channel is all about. So again, thanks for your time. So I want to start off this series in this very first video with something that is foundational, and that is having a good understanding of the things that we do to pacify us when we're emotionally distressed or unhappy. And if you think about babies, and I have two young kids under the age of 3, and I have another one coming soon. So I'll have, come April, a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and then a newborn. God help me. But anyway, I know a lot about pacifiers. And when do we usually give them to babies? When they're unhappy, when they're distressed, when they need to be soothed or settled down. That's when they get pacifiers. Now, certainly that might make sense for a baby or even for a toddler, right? They don't have the language that they need to express themselves. They don't have the skills and abilities yet to manage the distress and unhappiness they might be feeling. So they need help. That's where the pacifier comes in. That's where mom comes in, you name it. All right. The problem is that as we age and grow and mature, we should be replacing those pacifiers with skills that are healthy and help us meet life's challenges, that help us to deal with disappointment, to deal with anger, to deal with loneliness, to deal with frustration, and a whole host of other emotions that we feel that might be unpleasant. The problem is, instead of developing healthy skills to deal with those frustrating emotions or those unpleasant emotions, we tend to use other things and develop unhelpful skills to get us through those tough times. And that's a problem, because oftentimes those unhelpful skills lead to some really undesirable outcomes in the short term and in the long term. So step 1 is identifying what your pacifiers are. What is it that you do? What is it that you expose yourself to? What is it that you ingest or eat or put in your body that you eat or do to help yourself feel better? This is where we need to start with coping skills. Because until we understand what you're actually doing now to cope with distress and unpleasant emotions, we won't have a really clear foundation and a clear understanding of what needs to change so that we can cope in a more healthy and effective way. All right? So this is all about understanding your pacifiers, the things that you do, expose yourself to, or ingest to help yourself get through difficult times. So I want you to consider for a second those things that you might use. And I look down because I have a list here of some really common things that I come across in my work with clients. And again, if we want to change, we first have to understand what it is that we're doing. So here are some common pacifiers that people use. We use food. Food, 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 food. That is such a big pacifier or coping strategy, especially in this country, is eating. Eating away your sorrows, eating away your hurt feelings to make yourself feel good. And on my website, welldesignedself.com, I do have a series on weight management. And in that video, I talk a lot about why we use food, why we keep going back to those sugary foods, those starches, those carbs, because they help us feel better. All right. So if you want to know more, go to welldesignedself.com and take that course. But food, friends, or social activities can be a pacifier. And so when you don't want to deal with something that's unpleasant, maybe you call a friend, maybe you distract yourself by going out, hitting a few bars, going to some parties. That happens, and it works. Because while you're out partying and having fun, you're not thinking about those unpleasant feelings or unpleasant life issues that you're dealing with. Then there's TV. This is another big one, right? I mean, people Netflix and chill all day long. And while it's fun, if we're using it in an unhealthy way to cope or distract ourselves from unpleasant things or avoid feeling negative emotions, that's not such a good thing. All right, and we'll talk more about why in the later videos that come. But certainly TV, eating, friends, and socializing. And I even have on here isolation. All right, so when things aren't going well for you, when things get too distressing or unpleasant, do you pull away and isolate? Do you retreat from society? Do you go home and not leave for the rest of the day, shut your phone off and not talk to anyone because you don't want to discuss what's bothering you or you don't want to encounter any additional stressors? That kind of isolation, while it might feel good in the short term, can have some consequences in the long term. And so all of these things, let me just say, they're not bad or horrible or negative on their own. All right? It's not even bad or negative if you do some of these on an occasional basis from time to time. We want to identify pacifiers so that we can learn to replace them with good skills that can help us cope better and actually manage and move through the unpleasant emotions and difficult life circumstances in a way that's healthy and whole.